We've cured cancer in mice, but we are not even remotely close to curing cancer in humans because we're just two very different species. 50% of heart attack survivors end up getting a second heart attack within 5 years because of cardiac fibrosis. We don't have a drug specifically for it.
And I'm always curious about AI and how you see that helping you in the lab.
I think we need to all embrace AI as part of, and then actually use it to our advantage. Remember, I told you we're screening for drugs? We're doing a virtual screen with them.
Wow.
Well, that's fun, right?
What if a single cell could become a window into human disease? Suleen Raad, Chief Operating Officer at Telescope Therapeutics, is building human-relevant models that bring drug discovery closer to how disease actually works in the body. Using stem cells, her team creates beating heart organoids, living tissue models that let them study cardiac fibrosis as it develops and test how therapies might intervene before damage compounds. In this episode, we talk about her path from academic stem cell research to building a company and why organoids are changing what's possible in regenerative medicine. Let's get into it. Well, thanks for joining us. I'm excited to hear more about what you're up to and what you're doing at Telescope, and then just a little bit more, about your journey leading you to where you are now. So how did you just from science, from the lab, in stem cells, what got you into what you're doing now? And then how has that path led to you to Telescope?
Yeah, so my background is very academic, right? So I did my master's and my PhD, molecular biology, always been fascinated by stem cells and the potential of stem cells. And so I think I wanted to have more of an impact on humans' lives rather than, I'm not going to say it's a bad thing, but rather than focusing on publications and doing it for science, I wanted to do it for people. And so I realized that going in a startup would be very challenging. It's not even exponential. I feel like it's a perpendicular line. The journey has been, skyrocketing, and it's very exciting because not only are you enjoying the science, it's going to have an impact. It might help someone someday. And I think this is something I was looking for. It's giving me the drive. It's giving me the purpose. So this transition has been really satisfying to move, from the bench, which I still do. I still enjoy. I'm hands-on. I still like to do the experiments. But then when I do the market research and market validation, and I'm talking to the cardiologist and I'm talking to people, it's so satisfying. You feel like you're driven by a purpose. You're helping someone.
I hear that a lot from a lot of academics or people that were in that realm and transitioning into the startup realm. I like that though. The perpendicular line, it's a huge jump.
Gosh.
It's not anything you can explain. Until you do it.
No.
But yeah, having that drive to want to bring something out of the lab into the world and affect humans' lives.
Yes. Yes, that's it. That's the drive. That's the purpose.
And then how did that transition work in terms of why Telescope? How did you going from academia into that company? How did that happen?
It's an asset to be specialized in something really unique and new and kind of like a hot topic right now, stem cells and organoids, especially because the FDA, Health Canada, everyone's moving away from animal models. And so, when you're looking for a founding, team, you need expertise and you need to find someone who is highly specialized. And I think this is what the co-founders were looking for. And so this is how it all started. Me having this asset was very critical for the company. So there's this technology, and maybe I'll mention that at Telescope, it's not like we're doing something that no one else is doing. We're bringing in two very unique technologies together in order to find a drug for fibrosis. So yes, there are people who work with stem cells. There are people who have these biosensors that can tell you how a drug works, but no one does both. And this is what Telescope is bringing in. And so when you're building that startup, you need people who have the right background, the right expertise, the right techniques in order to, bridge that gap between these two technologies and have a more relevant model to find a drug. It was really by connections and knowing people that we became Telescope, because we were looking for these expertise, right? So I was the one bringing in the stem cell expertise. Yana was there. And obviously it's a spinoff from McGill University. So it's coming from a lab with Dr. Terry Eber. He's a professor at McGill, and he has had his lab since, I think, 25 plus years now that he's been working with this biosensor technology and the GPCR world. And so he's bringing in that background and that expertise. And so I'm also bringing in the stem cell expertise, and this is how we came about.
Okay. So having connections and having a very unique, specific niche that you were focused on.
That's what makes, my profile interesting, because I have this expertise. Not that other people don't, but I did have connections. So it was word of mouth, honestly, and my background and the things and the work that I did that, brought me with Terry and Yana and the co-founders, and we started Telescope.
And then just to drop a little bit more into Telescope, I know you touched on it a little bit with something that you feel like you're doing that's kind of unique. Moving out of the animal models, which is exciting. I'm hearing a lot more about that in Canada, and we're a little behind in the US. I feel like with some of that with what happens in Canada, but that's exciting. Just a little more about organoids and what that is and I feel like that's one thing too, is I found from a personal perspective, you've written a children's book. So maybe you have a good way of explaining it, like in layman's terms, in a simple way, or just to talk a little bit about that. I mean, that seems like an interesting shift from science to children's books too.
Oh yeah. You want me to talk about the children's book or about Telescope? Because I'm passionate about both.
You can touch on both. They don't have to be like siloed.
Right. I think my passion for helping people has always been there, one way or another. It just takes different shapes and forms throughout my life. And so when I was doing my PhD, I was doing it in a children's hospital here in Montreal in Saint-Justine. And I was working with Professor Christophe Faure, and he is actually the president of the clinic of a rare disease called esophageal atresia. These children are born with their esophagus. The esophagus, the food tube, is not connected to their stomach. So when they are born, they can't swallow their own saliva. They can't swallow milk. And so they actually choke. You know how when a baby is born, the mom brings him in and he starts breastfeeding. Well, this is when he starts choking. He might have trouble breathing as well, because the trachea is also a bit floppy. And so this was the disease I was working on during my PhD. And I was trying to just understand, is there a genetic, mutation? What's going on? Like, what are the mechanisms that are leading to this malformation? By the way, these babies, they survive. Now we have, surgical repair. You just pull up the stomach and you tie it to the esophagus. They might not have the best gastric functions because they still have like refluxes. They have more recurrent pneumonia. So they do have other issues that they have to deal with for the rest of their lives, but we can manage these symptoms. And so 100%, no more mortality rate, right? It was 100% mortality rate before we figured out how to do this, because they didn't know what to do when that child was born. Fast forward to now, 100% of them survive with, gastric complications, which me and you might have. I have reflux. And so this is something that they just, learn to live with. Doing a PhD is not easy. It's very, very challenging. And so it was kind of a way for me to stay motivated. My supervisor, Professor Christophe Faure, asked me to join him at the clinic. So I would meet these patients. And then every Thursday I would meet, pediatric patients. So up to 16, 18 years old, and even young children, 2, 3 years old. And I realized that they don't know what's wrong with them. They just come in for checkups. They come in maybe once a year, twice a year. They just come in just with their parents. They're checking in. Everything's okay. Are they growing well? Because they're followed by their own GP, but they always come back to this pediatrician who specialized in this malformation that they have. So I realized that they don't know what's an esophagus. They don't know that they were born with discontinued tube. They didn't know the words, let's say dilation, because some of their esophagus becomes like tight. So they need to dilate it every once in a while because some food will be stuck. Or they didn't know what stenosis, which is, when it collapses. And so they didn't know it. I would just sit there and sometimes chat with these children. And sometimes the parents are not fully aware of what exactly went on with their parents. And so this is where the idea of a children's book came from. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to write a book and I'm going to explain this complicated, but not so complicated malformation to these children and their parents and their friends in school, I think this would be super helpful. And so I raised money to GoFundMe. All these parents on Facebook, I reached out to the community on Facebook, the EATEF community, and they funded the book from A to Z. I wrote it, sent it to an editor, worked with an illustrator, then a graphic designer who put the book together. And then I didn't want any publisher or anything, just put it on Amazon. And people and parents started buying it like crazy and sending me pictures of their kids at show and tell in school, or when they're having, bedtime stories with the family, or when grandparents are coming over to visit, they would read the story together. It's very simple. I use all scientific terms. So I'm not saying food tube. I'm not saying your air tube. I'm saying your esophagus, your trachea, stenosis, dilation, pneumonia, gastric reflux. Like, I'm using the words that they will hear the doctor saying or asking. I explained why they have the scars, because this is where they went in and did the repair. So they just feel seen, that they can relate to that child, because it's also a child in the book. It's a very simple story of a little girl on her birthday writing her diary and remembering things that happened to her. And so this is how I elaborate further into the science behind this malformation. And yeah, it's probably one of my greatest success stories. Like, this is my success story. It's my favorite. So that's why I was so happy when you said you're going to ask me about the book.
Yeah, I feel like I had to. I was so curious. You don't see a lot of people in a PhD program, science, working on stem cells, and then also publish a children's book. It's kind of unique. So thank you so much for that story. That's touching. And I can see that it's doing a lot of good. And you mentioned something there too, is just explaining the actual science to them too, which makes sense. So then when it's not just saying tube or different ways of saying it, so the child actually can go in there and understand like those terms and what a doctor's saying, feeling, seen. So that's really special. I'm sure they really appreciate that. How does that prepare you to be able to better explain what you're doing now? Because I feel like it is pretty dense science in terms of what you all are doing now, or it can come across that way when I read through your website. And it can be a little science dense. I mean, I feel like I understand to some extent now, but just how has that helped you explain? And then just that'll give you the floor to explain, what you're doing now.
What we're doing. Yeah. So just maybe real quick, just to tell you, I got into stem cells because I read an article in 2006 when I was still in high school about Shinya Yamanaka discovering a way to make cells go back in time. And my jaw dropped. I was like, this is exactly what I want to do. I want to study these cells. I want to understand how he made them. This is impossible. What do you mean you can make stem cells now? And so this was Shinya Yamanaka who got the Nobel Prize for his work. And this is how I ended up going to Paris to do my master's in a lab that was one of the first labs to be working with stem cells. A lot has changed since then. We've come a long way. We're talking, 20 years. And so the way we work with stem cells now, it's a lot easier. It's more accessible. It's more affordable too. You don't need big grants and paying a lot of money to be able to work with stem cells. They're still expensive to work with, but they're not as tricky. There are protocols. It's a lot easier. And so these stem cells, and so I'm going to describe it in an easy way. So any cell in your body can take it, and we can add a bunch of factors that can bring it back in time to when you were a single cell. And then these are called stem cells. And then these cells, I can manipulate certain pathways to make them become a certain organ. This mini organ that we call organoid is not a fully functional organ. Obviously, I'm not going to make a heart organoid and then I'm going to have a transplant, take out your heart with a bunch of
That would be amazing though.
That would be amazing. But we're still a long way from that. Like, we're not there yet, right? We barely, I have beating organoids. I wish I could show you here, or people who are listening. But, they are just, little balls and they're beating, right? So I know I have the functional cells that make up your heart, but is it really representative? Does it contain all the different cells that make up your heart? Obviously, your heart is not just the muscle that's beating. you have a lot of supporting cells that make it a heart. You have neurons, you have fibroblasts, you have endothelial cells that will make the vessels for the blood to flow. You have a bunch of, cells that make up your heart. And even if I add these bunch of cells together, it's not like I know the ratio. It's not like I know how they interact with each other. It's not like I know what I need to feed them in order to meet all their needs, because they have different needs. So we're still far from that. But cardiac fibrosis per se, I need to focus on which cell is affected. So I can focus on the fibroblasts. I don't need to focus about the blood vessels because I know they're not affected. And so I'm focusing on a particular cell in there. And that's what most of the work is being done now, on the functional or on the, let's say, cell of interest, right? And so even if these organoids are not fully representative, they can give me an idea, the cells of interest for me. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah.
Okay. And so maybe just briefly, I can say that cardiac fibrosis is kind of like the scarring of the heart. And so when you scratch your hand, you have a bunch of cells that come in and just fill that gap. Okay. These are the fibroblasts. They make a wound, right? You heal, but over time, this scar goes away. Well, that doesn't happen in the heart. That scar remains. And sometimes your body just overdo it. Like, you shouldn't overdo it. You should stop after the scar. It overdoes it. Then you end up with an overscarring that makes your heart super stiff. And then what happens is you get a heart attack because it becomes super stiff, right? So how did you get the injury to begin with? You got a heart attack. So you got a heart attack, you got the wound healing, okay, but then it became an overscar. It made it even more stiff. And now you're at risk of a second heart attack and probably heart failure. And so what we're trying to do is to prevent that, to prevent this overscarring and prevent the heart attack. This is one avenue. The other avenue is more of the silent fibrosis, which is when people have hypertension or have diabetes. Well, you're actually doing some, let's call it damage to your heart. And so you create some fibrosis in your heart. And out of nowhere, you got a heart attack. But that's because you've been building up this fibrosis in your heart unwillingly, unknowingly. You didn't know about it. You were just treating your diabetes. And so we are looking for a drug that will reshape fibrosis, that will prevent fibrosis from happening. And we're doing that by modeling it. So I am modeling the heart attack in a dish using stem cells because I can make these beating cells. And then we are screening. We have a target. We have a specific target that we know, and we have, Professor Hébert has already worked on this, extensively, and we know this is a good target for fibrosis. We're looking and screening for a drug that, hits this particular need, right? This particular fibrosis. And so that's why we're bringing in two technologies, the stem cells, and we have these biosensors that can tell me how the drug is affecting my cells. And so I hope I made it not too sciencey. I'm trying to make it, easy.
No, I feel like you did a good job. I mean, and that,
okay, great.
That was, that explains it, to me. I feel like, the stem cell is also fascinating to me. I did a lot in regenerative medicine. I feel like I sat with, his name is Dr. Neil Riordan. He works a lot with stem cell stuff. And I sat with him and was so curious, like, why are we not using these for so many different things? And there's a lot of regulation and rules on different things for them and different aspects, but I didn't think of it as much being able to be used in the function that you're talking about. I was more about regenerative medicine and putting it back into people, but I didn't understand.
I'm not gonna I'm not going to put it back in people. I don't have to think about it. I'm just making sure that that drug actually works in human, because I love this saying, and I keep saying it all the time. We've cured cancer in mice. We're done. Like, we've done it, right? We've cured cancer in mice, but we are not even remotely close to curing cancer in humans, because we're just two very different species. So even the receptor that we're targeting, it actually went all the way up to clinical trial, right? Using animal models, and then it failed. Just because the receptor is completely different and the biology behind it was completely different. So they spent billions of dollars for it to fail in clinical trials because it was not a relevant model. And so now I'm screening it on a human model, on a relevant model. These cells are expressing the right receptor and it will give me the right biology. So when I bring that to a human, it's going to work. or at least I hope so.
No, you're the first guest I had on the podcast, Dr. Elizabeth Boyer. She's from CompraV, and that's really what they're doing, is studying human relevant models, or bringing that to, they're doing it with aesthetics and different things to test it. But it just makes so much sense. Like, it's not just about not testing on animals. It's also the fact that these fail in clinical trials all the time because we're studying it on animals. I mean,
they work in animals. The animals are cured. Everything looks great. Now the human, it doesn't work, and it fails again. So because we don't have a relevant model, we're not mice.
Yeah, no. Why did you pick this disease state specifically?
Honestly, it's market research. Like, this is something that we started out thinking of, the cardiovascular space in general. And then there are a bunch of incubators that help academic startups understand business development, because we don't have the right background. And so we've been doing a lot of these programs, and a lot of these intensive programs, by the way, with McGill, with Concordia, and now in Quebec. This is like a nationwide, but it's the first French cohort that they're doing. So it's more Quebec based. But we have advisors, we have mentors, and then what they do is they provide us with advice, obviously, but then we go out there and we talk to people. And apparently this is the first thing you need to do when you even if you have a great idea. And I have a bunch of examples, because they always give us very catchy examples about, you thinking that this is a need, and you think that people need it, and you think it's a great idea, and then you go out there, spend time and money, and then nobody wants it. And
it's not funny, because it's sad when it happens, but it happens a lot.
Exactly. And so, yeah, there was this one host who was like, in one of the workshops, was telling us that he was an engineer, and he was working at the airport, and he found out that, they fuel the airplanes using these big trucks, and then they just dump the fuel in there, and then just go back and forth and fuel the airplanes. And then he was like, this is really inaccurate. The lid is open all the time, so they're going to get contamination. There's a risk that someone might fall in when they're filling it with the fuel. Like, this is just, there's absolutely a need for me to get a sensor, for me to make it automated, where you just plug it in and no one touches it. And then he had all his reasons, and then he went back to the lab, made these sensors, brought them back, and they were like, no, we don't need it. Like, we're fine. I mean, no one has ever fell into it. The airplane engines, they have filters for any contamination. We don't care if it's accurate or not. I just want to fill up the plane. And he was like, okay. And so this goes back to the question, why cardiac fibrosis? We talked to cardiologists. We talked to 100+ cardiologists, MRI specialists who see the heart firsthand and tell us about cardiac fibrosis. We spoke to health economists. We spoke to a lot of people. And then, this drove us into focusing on cardiac fibrosis, because it's silent. There's no direct drug that treats cardiac fibrosis, because right now they have a cocktail of medications that they give to you when you have a heart attack, but none of them prevent the overscarring. They might have a side effect of maybe slowing it down, but nothing stops it from making the heart too stiff and stopping that person from getting a second heart attack. And so that's why when we spoke to these cardiologists, they're like, please address fibrosis. Like, we need a drug that's specific for fibrosis, because the number is huge, Christopher. I'm talking 50% of survivors, heart attack survivors, end up getting a second heart attack within 5 years because of cardiac fibrosis and probably other things. But a lot of them end up having a second heart attack because of that. So we don't have a drug specifically for it. And then the more and more, we were thinking more cardiovascular disease space. Then we narrowed it down by doing market research, talking to people. And I think the quote, get out of the building, is what we need to all be doing whenever we're doing something, a new business, a new startup.
Yeah, that's so key. Thank you for that. That's good to hear that. Hopefully a lot of other people focusing on science hear that as well. And I love that story about with the plane, because it's so true. And it's sad. It's with people often in science, I find too, is get really in love with the technology and just sit there and work with it, and don't get out there as much, and really find a problem first, and then align that the other way to then, when it comes out, that it's actually relevant, and doctors are excited about it because it's a problem. You talk to them.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah, that's it. We talked to them. We also, they also helped us, right? Like which population to focus on. what do they see? I mean, some of them were surgeons, so they can even look at the heart, and they were telling us a lot of things that are very helpful. Even if I don't have an actual heart in the plastic dish and the lab, it just, it gives you a sense of direction, what you're looking for. And always having that vision of where you're going is very important. It's so different than doing academic research where you're like, oh, what's that? I'm going to explore it. Oh, what's that? I'm going to explore it. You know what I mean? Every time you have something weird coming out, oh, that's so exciting. And then you spend a year working on it. We can't do that, right? And so having a clear vision and a clear target keeps us always focused, like sharp on where we're going. And so that's why it's always important to have that vision in mind.
Yeah, it's a shift when there's business involved. Like you said, it's a perpendicular. It's not the same as when you're in academia. You have to have that focus and that vision on where you're trying to go and creating, because it's expensive to take paths in different directions. Yeah.
Oh no. Very expensive.
No, that's really exciting what you're creating. I feel like there's another Canadian company that just came out with a really exciting cardium out here in Vancouver on the West Coast. So maybe Canadians coming out with some really unique, novel technologies for heart. They were doing atrial fibrillation, which are really exciting technology. But it sounds like you guys are on the East too. But on that note, so you were speaking to some of the ecosystem there that seems to exist. And it's exciting when I talk to a lot of scientists at like incubator programs, or is that like you were speaking to that? How does that exist, or that embosystem in Montreal? Is that something?
I'm going to say it. Montreal is the startup hub. Like it's like all these startup festivals and all these, get-togethers. Yeah, it happens in Montreal. Like people like coming here just because there's this vibe of young entrepreneurs, not just in science, not just biotechs. I'm talking about any startup. And you see people flying in just to come in. Like there's the Startup Fest that happens usually in the summer. We were there last summer, and brilliant people coming from the US, all over Canada. And so it's like, it's on the map, Montreal, at least in Canada, when it comes to startups. As for the incubators, usually it's with universities. So since we are, you could apply to them, right? But you're normally affiliated to a university. So since the professor is part of McGill, I was a postdoc at McGill. So you can kind of, they guide you, right? And then you end up in these incubators that you could apply, to be part of. There are many. And like, at least for us, we've done the McGill Dobson Center with McGill. The Concordia is called Dobson. It's called the D3, District 3 with Concordia. And now we're doing the Lab to Market program. And this is the one I told you. It's a nationwide Canadian, and you have a lot of universities participating in it. And so usually it's through university, right? They're helping you bringing an idea that you have in the lab to the market, and not necessarily biotech or to, let's say, biology. I mean, part of the people here in the cohort that I'm in right now, they're like more techie people, like product, let's say. One is working to, something about working with new material for MRI imaging. The other one is working on quantum computers and making them safer and writing a code about it. So people have like ideas. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Or building apps, or there are plenty of ideas. So it's usually through universities that you have access to these incubators, and then it's not a huge community. It's we know each other. It's but then again, you're on the map if you're in Montreal. That's what I want to say. Maybe people won't like this, but I think we are.
No, those hubs are exciting. If that's what's happening there right now, you can get energy in the air, even if it's not just in your space. You can kind of feel it, and it's fun.
Yes, absolutely.
And that just transitions a little bit into, you were talking about tech, and I'm always curious about AI and how you see, I guess a couple different things. Like, is there a way that you see that helping you in the lab, or how you think about that, or different ways to use it? And then also just in your business too, the business at Telescope, and how you look at that.
I think we need to all embrace AI as part of, and then actually use it to our advantage. I am embracing, and I think it's integral that we make it part of our work. And so actually, we are collaborating with a company who, remember I told you we're screening for drugs? We're doing a virtual screen with them.
Wow.
So that's fun, right? So they get to see if these hits will fit my receptor. And they can let me know what are their top hits, and then I can test them myself. Instead of me testing thousands, I could test hundreds or a couple of hundreds. So we are very happy. Like, we'll see. I mean, they're now collaborating with them, and they're doing virtual screens. And this is a thing. So remember, I told you we have two arms in the company. We have the stem cells, and we have, the drug discovery platform. So for the stem cells, it's still, labor work, us doing the actual work. But for the screening, I think we're doing AI, right? So virtual screening to find candidates that we will translate it and then do it ourselves in vitro in our model. And so we are considering it. We are embracing it as part of the company. I don't see us using it in our business at the moment, but who knows?
Okay. No, I feel like that's exciting. It can speed up like the process of your science, or has the potential to just move faster, to embrace those things. I like hearing that too, because I feel like sometimes people aren't embracing parts of it that could really help accelerate their business or get them to market. And there's others who are, which I feel like then can move faster.
Absolutely. I mean, it's helping us, right? We spend a lot of money, and if you want to screen them in these models, as I said, stem cells are expensive. Making these cells are expensive. Like, just one bottle to feed these cells is $500, one bottle. And so you have to imagine, if I'm going to screen thousands of compounds on these models, it's impossible. It's going to cost us a fortune. So doing these virtual screens and then doing them in cheaper cells before we move to our cells, this is the approach we're taking. And
no, that's when you said bottle to feed the cells, it sounded funny to me. It's like I know it's not how you're feeding them, but it's just,
no.
That's an expensive bottle, though.
Very
those are expensive cells. Oh yeah, there's so much new science out there, ways to use stem cells. It's really exciting to be seeing it, to create these human relevant models and bring new technologies to market. And you're solving a really relevant problem by going out there and having conversations and finding what the most relevant problem is to solve, which is also exciting, because it'll, it makes business sense, but it's also it's good for humanity too, because you're picking the problem that's actually the most relevant and tangible. That's the real issue. And it sounds like this is such an underlying aspect of this condition that's not really being targeted in a way that's really preventing it. So thank you for the work that you're doing. So on that, what are you really excited about? What's next for Telescope? Like, what gets you really excited about what you're discovering and where you're going?
I think I'm waiting for my lead compound. I know it sounds too geeky, but once
we're in that zone, it's okay. I feel like
I'm excited once we have a hit, because once you have a hit, I think everything will follow. You'll have more investors interested in you. You could have. So I'm hoping that we would get a bunch of lead candidates that do something, right? Can I just say it this way? Do something. And then I can attract more investors that will also believe in these lead compounds. And then I feel when we start doing some toxicity assays, efficacy assays, and I see that it's coming more to life, I think I'm going to be super happy. I think this is like my next big milestone. We built everything ground up, right? And then we're doing all these screens, but we have the model ready and we're ramping up and we're starting our screen actually. And so it's exciting. Once we have something, it unlocks a whole new chapter where things are becoming more real. People are more interested in you, because right now, you need solid data, right? You need solid. I can't just keep telling them I'm screening. I'm going to find something that's going to do something. It's not appealing for any investor, right? And so we have an angel investor who believes in us, but we have to go out there and raise more funds. And so I think as soon as we have something concrete and we can move forward with that, I think it's going to be super exciting. And just having this next chapter, again, it unlocks new, and then in every chapter I think I'm going to learn so much, and I'm excited about learning more and more. I think should all be excited about learning something new. It's something completely different from my background in academia. And so it's fun. It's exciting. I like learning new things and challenging myself. I think it's going to be an exciting couple of years ahead.
Yeah, that is exciting. Yeah, they call them angel investors because they are. They've believed in you before it's maybe all the way there.
Exactly.
But yeah, you're ready to go to the next level and get investment too. So that's exciting to see where that goes and just the journey. I look forward to follow in that and seeing what happens next at Telescope. So anything out there, just words of advice that you would have to share, I guess, for people making that transition from academia into the world of business?
You need to learn how to not take things personally and to accept rejection. It's a process, right? In academia, we're in this bubble, right? We're like doing our own projects, and then we go to these conferences and everyone tells us we're doing a great job. And we discovered that there's, this tiny thing that did that to that other tiny thing. And so we're all just proud of each other. We don't get that, real life experience of getting rejections and trying to talk to people and they don't want to talk to you. And I think it's so integral to talk to people, like so important. So you need to have those soft skills, those communication skills. So put yourself out there, talk to people. And if they don't want to talk to you, that's fine. Look for that other person. It's not like every email or every encounter I've had was positive, not at all. And so I used to take things personal too quickly. They didn't like me. They don't believe in what we're doing. I think we need to have like a tougher skin because we, come out of this shell, this academic, environment. And so you need to be more out there and accept this change. I think this is my advice. At least this is what I've learned those last 2 years, besides the business aspect of things, which anyone can grab a book and read. I think when you actually do it and you actually do the market research and, go out there and do it, just do it. You're going to learn so much.
Yeah. I feel like everyone can learn that like take that, like don't take it personally, but that's so good though. I was talking to, he runs a biotech lab in the Bay and he's PhD and he was talking about this from PhD candidates. And just that he said, I had to just keep doing that, like talking to people and force myself until I became more comfortable with it. Cause most people in lab and PhD setting aren't necessarily that's not their strength or wouldn't be something that draws them into that. So it just takes, talking and getting out there, not taking it personally. So thank you for that, for sharing. Hopefully that's helpful for some other people as well. And then just to close out here, how do people find what you're doing and what's on Telescope? I know you're on LinkedIn. Is there other avenues to kind of keep track of what's happening there? And you as well?
You can find me on LinkedIn and you can find Telescope Therapeutics on LinkedIn. And we have our website. It's we're planning on making it more interactive where we share updates or anything that's happening at Telescope. So you could find news, updates, and what we're doing on our website and on LinkedIn. That's where you can find us.
Suleen, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure. So good to learn about you. And where can they find your book? If someone wants to find your book.
On Amazon. It's called Starlet. I can send you the link if you want.
We'll put it in the notes on the YouTube. Yeah.
Oh, that's so nice. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You've been listening to Stories in Life Sciences, sponsored by MedAccess AI, where we explore people, ideas, and breakthroughs shaping the future of biotech and healthcare innovation. To learn more, visit medaccessai.org and subscribe on YouTube to watch the full conversations and new episodes as they launch. I'm Christopher Wilson. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, keep shaping the future, one story at a time.